Hey, everybody. Diane Brandon Moody here again, back with part 2 of the 50-something Love podcast episode with Mike Watts. Mike is married to Kate Northrup and is co-founder of the company. He's also father to 2 daughters, and we're talking conscious men. And this is, like I said, part 2 of that conversation. I hope you like it as much as I did. Please share it with somebody, give me some feedback, like it, or just tell your friends. I think everybody will enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you so much for being here. Bye. So there are episodes that I encourage the women to make sure that their significant other, if they have one, listens to something, and that's going to be one of these. So without telling people what to do, because I know that never works with men, but if somebody goes, oh, I want to be kind of like that, I want to be more like that, what would be a suggestion or two for you?
Talking specifically to men?
Yeah, if you're speaking to men.
I would say if you're married, like if your partner, or you're in a long-term partnership, right? You don't have to be married, or just in a partnership in general. I would actually having a real conversation with your partner, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual relationship, doesn't really matter. But just like, what are their desires and visions for the future? And like having a real conversation with that without distractions. It's leaving the phones in the other room. You could bring like a kitchen timer or set a timer for 20 minutes and actually getting to know that person. And stuff is going to come up. You're going to start feeling stuff in your body. You're going to want to check out. You're going to want to be like, oh, I would love to travel once a month to some country. Okay, how are we going to afford that? How are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? And I think for me, what's been very helpful is when I get stuck in the how, because as dudes, we're problem solvers. Not everyone, not all men. There's guys I've hung out with that don't even think about solving a problem, period. I have friends that are the most disorganized dudes I have ever met. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, how do you run your life? I don't get it, right? Being Virgo and controlling as I am. It's like, but I think like those feelings of insecurity are the feelings that can, when you really tap into the insecure feelings and switch them. And there's going to be some dudes listening to this that have no idea what I'm talking about right now. But you can feel it when you're watching certain things or in a room, or if somebody asks you something and it's a sensation that kicks up that's like, I have to fix this problem now. And when you mess around with that feeling or those and journal about it, write about it, sing about it, whatever you want to do, go to a therapist about it. That is where the true superpower is. And for us, and that will create as Diane said, to start off this conversation, of like the consciousness that happens.
Right.
And then also I would second, based off my new book title that I'm not writing at this point, but this is what we learned in Bermuda. It's called the panty dropper. It's working with your crew and learning how to say, I'm sorry. And so in our therapist, he says, when you
listen to that, guys, write that down, guys.
See, that was, even Diane got excited about that one. And it is about, because I have a thing being around all the women in our group. All the women around us, they like apologize for existing, because
I hate like that.
Cultural programming that took place, that you're never good enough to fit into the situation, have money, run business, all this stuff. And it's like they apologize to me for no reason. And like men don't apologize at all. Right. So I think there could be a rebalancing this situation to really understanding for a woman, like when, like actually learning to apologize and when I'm actually doing things wrong. And then for guys, it's like, how do I actually learn how to apologize and what happens? And I think this just happened. That's why the book title came about, because it's this whole running joke between Kate and I now, is because I actually genuinely apologized to her in Bermuda. But what ended up happening is I knew I was wrong. At this point in our relationship, I said, if we're in like a conflict or something's going on, probably 90 to 95% of why I'm mad is because of me. Like, most likely you didn't do anything wrong, but I'm taking it out on you. right? And so I think it's to recognize this in the relationship dynamic. Am I actually mad because of something that Kate did? No, I was actually mad at myself for not listening to myself. And then I started making up stories to blame her. So then I guess it's kind of like called gaslighting in a way. I don't really know the true definition of that.
It's either gaslighting or projecting. Like I'm projecting my feelings onto you. You know,
because I wasn't. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but it's like I turn it around in a way. But what I realized in a genuine to be like, I was wrong. And then I knew I was wrong in what I did, but I didn't tell her. And so I had to she had to ask me questions because we've been through therapy together around this. She would ask me questions. And then I came out. I was like, I'm actually sorry. And she's like, why didn't you just tell me that? Because I feel like apologizing equals weakness, and weakness, I won't be able to do what I need to do or protect, right? Safety. So I think in those two things can be very helpful. But I think for men, I think we're at a place in the world. I had a conversation with someone. I've been thinking about this. We're like hot topic right now. This is like I've been thinking about a lot. Pretty hardcore for the last week. Is I watched the debate, the presidential Trump-Biden debate number 1, depending on when you're listening to this. And this is in 2024, a disaster, right? And I was so sad. I watched the first 25 minutes of it and I was like, I can't do any more of this. And I knew it was going to be the whole thing, right? But it was sad for me is that we are putting the president, who is currently the president of the United States, Joe Biden, on stage to compete with Donald Trump, which I have no idea. I still haven't figured out how Donald has so much energy. I think he has one of those people that can just go endless around it. But anyway, on stage with him. And I was just sad that this is for a variety of reasons, where we're at in the country, who these two people are, the fact that Joe is really struggling. And then the fact his Democratic side is just denying it. And we can witness the whole thing.
Right.
I've been seeing this for years. I've been watching Joe's slow decline, and I feel like I'm watching the guy die. That's what I feel like is happening right in front of us. And maybe he won't die. I don't know. But that's what, and I was just it hurt my heart to watch this happen. And then what's going to happen? I knew the result was going to come after this. All of a sudden, the Democratic Party would wake up and be like, we need to find a replacement because he's struggling.
Which we needed to do 2 years ago, but hey.
Yeah. And I don't want to this is not a politics situation. So if everybody's getting all riled up right now, let's bring it back down. What this more to me is about is our relationship with men, men's relationship with men, men's relationship with power. You could call it the patriarchy. You can call it whiteness in this world that we live in the United States. Correct. And then also what are women's relationship with men, women's relationship with fathers, women's relationship with their partners that are also dudes. And I'm finding that is a much more interesting dialogue to dive into because we are all jacked up as dudes. When you look at Donald Trump and Joe Biden are the best two people in the United States that are here right now to represent this country to move forward is the biggest crock of crap I have ever seen in my entire life. But it's Donald activates all of that power and kind of what I was making fun of earlier about the hunting and this masculine power dynamic that exists. And he really holds on to the old way, right? It's that way that was here. And then Biden was very much in that same box in the same category, but now he's been representing this quote unquote, the other side, right? Over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And so it's now we're looking at that and it's okay, now this man is sick because how many times in family dynamics where people have passed away, where you're just I don't know if he's really sick. I don't really know what's going on, but whatever's happening is not good. Right. And so in our families we're avoiding the fact that our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters are actually dying, right? Are actually sick. And then all of a sudden they die and you're like, what happened? So it's our relationship with older age, especially the baby boomers, because the baby boomers, this is it. This is the baby boomers time, right? And they've risen from complete World War II situation into total power, financial dominance. And now they're at the end of the stage of the life. So you're looking at this whole trajectory that to me is a bigger conversation that people aren't having. But to me, I've just been thinking a lot. I don't really know where to go with this, but I think it's a big thing to think about is what is our relationship with our dads? What is our relationship with our partners? What is our relationship with other men? in that world. And I think like we're seeing the unhealedness of it. If that, I don't even think that's a word, but like the place that we can heal.
Very much unhealed. Yes.
And the traumatic experience of, and that's not even talking about like structural system breakdowns, all that stuff, right? But it's like just witnessing what we're watching. And yeah, so that was a very long answer to your question. But like for dudes, I think just you can learn to apologize correctly, starting there, and then also noticing that we don't have to fix everything, right? Because that is something I've had to learn a lot. My wife is very big energy and comes at me every day with 100 ideas. And so in my head, she shows me the picture of a couch. We're buying it already. And then I'm like, what do I do with my other couch? So then I go do this. But then an hour later, she shows me another picture of a couch and then another picture of a couch. Like she just tosses around ideas like it's just like the run out of style, right? It's just nothing. It's just the way she operates. The way I operate is like, oh, this is what we're going to do. Let's do it. And so I've had to really just chill out around that. And that's been better. It's like not jump into the how, stay more in like the discovery phase for me and really learning to operate from my heart, not my head.
Those are excellent points. Thank you. I have quick rapid fire questions for you for the end.
I'm good. We can go. I have 20 more minutes, so we can.
Oh, okay, great.
I think you told me it was like 30 minutes, but we can go longer if you want.
Yeah, well, that's great. I before we get to that, then I would say that that's classic in our house. Not only do I have lots of ideas, I have ADHD that wasn't diagnosed until 6 months ago. So it's like, I feel so seen now. I finally understand what this is going on. So my husband is from the deep South. He's a slow talker, very, very smart man. It has nothing to do with smart, but he's slow to process, slow to talk. And I am the same way when I'm like, well, we could do this and then we could do this and then we could do this. And he's like, whoa, whoa, stop. And he's working on getting something fixed, and I haven't even really decided on it yet. I was just talking. So that's kind of an area where we learn to communicate a little bit better is just, I'm just talking right now. Just
right. And I think that's the other side, because I knew we just talked about men, but I think what's helping a lot in our relationship is like, I was like, Kate, what do you actually want? Like, just tell me what you want from what we're about to discuss. And then I'll be able to, it helps give guidance, right? It's creating boundaries around the conversation, because we'll be in the car and she's like talking for 20 minutes straight about all these things. And she's like, what do you think? I'm like, about what? Were you listening to me? And I was like, and then I tell her back the whole journey that we just went on together. And she's like, oh, you were listening to me. I was like, yeah, but what do you want to know? Like, what's your actual question? Right? It's like, what would you like me to know? And I think sometimes it's very helpful because now I can stop her when she's doing that to be like, okay, is this something you need assistance with? Or are you just sharing brainstorming? And I've also told her now lately, because she's now obsessed with us moving again. And so I was like, listen, I am not your brainstorm person to talk about moving with. Go call your girlfriends. Don't talk to me. Right. And so, because I don't want to talk about it, because I know what this is. This is just a constant dialogue of change. Right. So then I'm just like, it's this whole thing. Right. And that's a whole nother thing. But I'm just like, that is not what we're here. So it's creating structure and boundaries from what we actually need in the middle of those conversations. And that gets very helpful as well. And guys have to be very cautious about not using their spouses or wives or partners as their therapists or their sounding board. It like really is beneficial to find men who are in this conscious men category that Diane listed at the beginning to hang out with and like have other conversations with, because your wife doesn't want to be your therapist and you don't want to be your wife's therapist. Right. And it screws up the polarity of your relationship. And like, you have to have polarity for the relationship to last a certain amount to any length of time for that matter. Right. So what do I mean by polarity? It's like that term might not be, but like think of a magnet, right? Positive, negative, negative, for positive and negative to come together. It's good polarity. If you screw it up and you're trying to push a positive together, that is not going to work. right? It screws up the polarity of the dynamic that exists. And a lot of times I see it all the time because now I'm entering my early 40s. And what's happening now is I have a lot of friends getting divorced, right? It's the phase where the 20s are everybody's getting married. You have a couple kids or not. You just have a couple kids. You're like, this is hard. Something's not happening. And now they're getting divorced, right? And it's a variety of reasons. Sometimes they didn't deal with their stuff. They didn't want to work on it. Other times the spouse just doesn't like the other person anymore, right? It's like there's a whole variety of reasons. But we're seeing that now a lot in our friend groups that's taking place. Yeah. So I think with women, it's also, and men, it's like creating why are we having this conversation? What are we talking about? Is it just for fun? I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas. I don't need you to do anything, but yeah.
Long time ago, it's been a while, but I was a moderator on John Gray, Mars Venus dude on that website back in the day when it was, message boards before social media got a really good handle on it. And of course, he was all about polarity and men do this and women do that. I think in places I think in places it's kind of dated information, but overall there are some really good ideas. So if anybody's looking for a good resource, especially in dating, Mars Venus on a Date is a good place to start for just basic understanding. And he said that all the time about when you're needing help versus not needing help, that if a woman says to a man, I am just talking right now, I don't need you to do anything, because that's how we process our thoughts as we talk generally. That's a very general statement, but that's the way we do it is we're going to talk to you about moving. And what do you think about this and this and this and this and this and this? And we're not needing you to solve it in the moment. But if the woman doesn't say that, then the guy is halfway down the road trying to fix everything, and we've changed our minds. It's not because we didn't change our minds. We weren't fully decided in the first place, but it's hard to communicate that. So it's a good place to learn how to do that.
The thing I hear a lot about from women who are single now dating, it's like if a guy just shows up and asks her questions, he moves from like a 1 to an 8 immediately, right? It's just like having interest in who the other person is. And I think with long-term partnerships too, I mean, this is not my world of expertise. What I know for Kate and I though, is like, we're just interested in each other. Like, what would you do today? What'd you go, And I think what I'm hearing so much about the dating world now, because it's so easy. Like, it is so easy to date. You swipe. Like, you can go through 300 people in 5 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. Right? It's easy not to date, not to do the act of dating, but to find people to date. It's much easier than it was 20 years ago, where you're just like, even Match.com when it first started, you're like on there and it's this whole thing and the website loads. But now, like, the information and to get access to it is easier, but it still doesn't take, like, if I was online right now, what would I do? So let's talk about that. It's where you find somebody that's interested and then get it off the app as soon as possible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's what
do not get to know them better. Yeah. Women say this all the time. Well, I just don't feel safe until I get to know him better. You're never going to get to know him better on a stupid app. You get to know him better by meeting him in person.
Yeah, it's all like the polarity is just energy, right? So it's an energy exchange that's taking place. Now, it's exhausting to have to go to coffee 10 times a week, right? With some random person you don't know and put on a show, meet them, what's it going to be like type thing, right? But if you take it off the app and then you're like meeting, and so I think about that. But it's just like for guys, like even people that have been in long-term relationships, like, you just be interested in who your woman is. Like, she's going to be far more receptive to you, because this is what I just hear it over and over and over. If guys would just ask me questions, like, and if you don't know how to ask questions, just practice. Like, listen to what the woman says and be like, oh, you went there? What's that like? And just make them up. Like, it doesn't have to be like, just make them up to be like,
And another John Gray-ism was that it's very common for men to be selling themselves in the beginning of this. And there's nothing wrong with that up to a point.
Correct. Yeah.
But it can go overboard. I mean, selling yourself, saying why you're a decent guy and all that, that's perfectly legit, but don't do it for the whole hour and a half.
Yeah,
That
it's a conversation. Like
it
how
should be a back and forth. Yeah.
right. And so yeah, that's what anyway.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get to these questions because it may take us a few minutes, but where's your favorite place to travel?
Well, I just came back from Colombia. That was great. I don't have a favorite place. I mean, I think the most frequent place we go is Maine, just because of friends and family
Mhm.
that's there. But we actually, Kate and I don't really go back to the same places because the world is a really big place and we like to experience it all. So I've been to 49 out of the 50 states in the United States. The last one's Alaska. I don't, yeah, I don't really have a favorite. I just I like to go to new places to make myself uncomfortable. And like, what is the purpose of going there? Like experiences, right? It's like Colombia was great because it was completely different culture. And right now I'm into the thing of like, how do I experience different culture? Like going to the South, like from growing up in Indiana to go to the South, it's a whole different vibe, right? It's like you leave the South, go to the West, different vibe. You go to New York, California, different vibe. So I think that is what I find about travel to be favorite for me. It's not a place, it's more of the experience and the feeling of being there.
That's awesome. I never get sick of London myself, but I do like new stuff. So what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Where do you live now?
I live near Fort Worth, Texas,
Yeah.
Dallas, Fort Worth. Mm-hmm.
What keeps me up at night? When I am not delegating enough. And it's my biggest thing I'm learning through right now. So, meaning me feeling I have to do everything myself. And if I stay up too late, that will keep me up at night. Technology before bedtime keeps me up at night, and really screws up my sleep. But I think the biggest thing that I don't have a problem going to sleep. So that's not my issue. I don't really have a problem sleeping. Once I fall asleep, I fall asleep. But the things that ruins my sleep are what I listed as being on my phone before bed. So that does, which I really do a good job. I would say 85% of the time, 90% of the time, that's not an issue. And then if I feel overworked, it's because I have the mentality or grew up with the mentality that's either my way or the highway. And then I'm stressing myself up about stuff over during the day. So that is what keeps me up at night.
Good deal. What's your favorite curse word?
I think I use fuck too much. I think I cuss too much, honestly. So it would probably be better to just reduce that. But like if you can do a really good time, like a good time shit, that's a good one. You know?
Great. I think pretty much everybody has landed on that F word. Do you have a celebrity crush?
I'm really into Megan Good right now. That's my celebrity crush right now. The actress Megan Good. Yeah, we can stick with her. She's good. She's
okay.
at the moment. Yeah.
That's wonderful. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food. Fruit.
Good deal.
Yeah.
And what's your guilty pleasure?
Watermelon is my favorite thing. Movies and YouTube.
What kind of movies?
Right now, really, I like anything. I'll watch whatever kind of movie, just because I would say, I don't know if it's my guilty pleasure. Well, guilty pleasure right now. Okay, let me define that. Movies and YouTube is more of a distraction. So that is my distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of guilty pleasure, is Legos is my thing that is happening at this moment in time. And I don't drink. I don't do any. I stop all that stuff. I stopped all drugs about 12 years ago, and now it's been, I think, having a better relationship with food has been my journey for the last 5 years. And so now, yeah, guilty pleasure, I would say right now is Legos.
Oh, that's awesome. I gave that to my brother. I have 3 brothers, but my middle brother Nobody could think of anything to get him, and I got him a big package of Legos, and that was the thing that he screamed at. Of course, he was 27 when he screamed. He was
I
still,
mean, it comes back
he
around.
was so excited.
I always wanted these things, and I couldn't. Like, they're pricey, right? It's like you get up there. I mean, this freaking thing is like $180, right? And I'm just like, that's a lot of money. And then now I, have money in the bank, and I'm like, I am getting a Lego. I'm like, this is great because like I don't play video games anymore. I just don't I don't do a lot of that. So I'm like, now I can get myself a freaking typewriter Lego.
I kind of, my version of that was, and this was a while back, but when I was growing up, if the school called for a box of 8 crayons, that's what I got, 8 crayons. There were 5 kids, lots of stuff going on. So it was like the 8 crayons. And if they called for 16, I got 16. But what I wanted was that big box of 64.
Yeah.
And I never got it. And one time I noticed that feeling in a Target, and it was years later. I was probably in my 30s at the time. And it was like, oh, well, I never got one of those. I was like, you know what? I think I can afford a box of 64 crayons now. I think we can solve this problem pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I now have a whole drawer full of crayons and paints and paper, and I'm not an artist at all, but it's fun to play with. But it's cool. I think I can afford crayons at this moment. So yay. So any parting words of wisdom for men or women? Anything else you got?
I think just have a lot of grace for each other. It's like in the dating world. And I know you asked me this question. I didn't really have an answer to it, but it's kind of popped in my head about just advice for like finding that conscious man, like for women and for guys the same way. It's like, just become the person that you really want to be with, like in this world, right? It's like, don't worry, stop spinning the wheels about like, I don't have this guy now. Because if it's like, if I don't have a guy, what are you associating that to? Like, I'm a failure. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this. Like, it goes into all these other lack mentality. And so for me, what I've really had to do, like, I want to take our company to $10 million. Like, that's the goal I want to do. So like, if I sit here and be like, we haven't generated $10 million in revenue. We haven't generated, that's such from a lack perspective. It's like, okay, who does Mike have to become to take his business to $10 million? So right now I'm dating 10 million. We have not met at this point. I'm sure one day we will, right? But like, I know we will, but I just don't know when, right? I don't know the timeline. So I have to start building the habits now to get me to the mic of $10 million. Right. And I know it's like the whole manifestation, and it's like, oh, just think about it. It'll happen. It's not going to, right? Like,
no, it doesn't work.
It's not
like
about
that.
a thought process. It's more of an action and embodying this experience, because I have to feel what that's like. What are the steps I need to do for 10 million? I don't need to work harder. Like, that is not the solution. I need to work less and train and become a better trainer, where people are working for me or with us to help me get there, because I know I have the vision. I know I have the capability to how to do it, but it's like, I have to take myself out of the day to day. So when you think about dating, is like, I want a guy that make a list of what those traits are, right? That's what I did. And then guess what? Kate showed up. I was dating a lot of women, and then I stopped. I made a list of who I wanted to date. I said, I'm taking 2 months off dating. Frickin' I meet Kate. And then like, we're traveling a couple of months later. Right. And it was just like, it just happened out of this way. But I stopped with I need to do this. And I think that is the piece of like, where do you feel like, if you could say insecure or lack or whatever the term you want to be able to use is, it's like, who do I have to become to put myself in a situation to meet this person? You don't know where you're going to meet them. Number one, you can't control it. It will happen if you've opened yourself up to it. And I think that is where the energetic shift needs to take place. Think about like a picture you take, or you take a selfie of yourself. You know how you open your phone on selfie mode sometimes, and it's like down in your stomach, and then all you see is like your double chin action, and you're like, oh my God, like I look like that?
Yeah.
What? But like actually take a photo of yourself standing up this and like look at it and be like, okay, is this presenting to somebody that is like, would somebody be attracted to it? Is this the energy that I'm portraying? What is it? Maybe I have to wear different clothes. Maybe I have to dress differently. Maybe it's just changing this. Maybe it's doing my hair differently. Whatever that would be. Maybe it's inside. It's like something that's going on inside of me that I want to change. And I think for there, it's like to set myself up better in that world and that would, goes for everything. This happens like growing your business, growing your company, losing weight, gaining muscle, like having better relationship with your parents, like whatever that is like you're the only person. I am the only person that I can be in charge of.
Right.
I'm not in charge of my kids, which I already gave you my parenting philosophy. I'm not in charge of Kate, right? Like we are two separate beings that are operating in the very, parallel paths. And for me, it's like, okay, how do I show up in the world that's here? If it's like you're complaining with your girlfriends about you're not having a good relationship, like who wants to be with that? Like the truth is, right? And so who are you hanging out with? Are you around people, if you want a partnership, that also have good partnerships? Or is it you and 4 girlfriends or you and 3 guys going out that are all single, complaining about relationships and other people? And it's like, you don't have to hang out with married people, but like, where do married people go on a Saturday morning? And if they have kids, maybe you want kids, they go to the freaking grocery store. They go to the pool. Like we have these beach clubs in Miami. They go to the beach club, right? They go to brunch. So like put yourself in that environment and just watch people, just see how they interact, see how they behave, see what it is. You'll see good things to pick up on, other good things, ask questions. Like if you have a professor or somebody else that you really like and they have a good marriage, ask them what they think, right? Start putting yourself in what that relationship dynamic exists. If you have a company, do the same thing, right? So that's what I would say.
I have 2 brief stories to that. One I'll share with a coaching client I have, which she's given me permission to share. But we were working on her list of, what's important to her in a spouse. And then we narrowed it down to 5 because we're looking for a real guy, not a Disney prince. And so we had 5. And then I said, okay, now go back and tell me who you're going to be to attract this person who's like this. So, if you want a guy with a positive attitude, you're probably not going to get away with much if you're bitchy, just stuff like that. So that was one story. The other story, which listeners have heard, but the way I met my husband, I didn't get married till I was 58. And that happened. It was a manifestation thing altogether. I was ending my year. And I always would take note of what worked well, what didn't work well, what do I want to do differently in the next year. So I'm writing all this down in my new journal for the year. And I heard a voice over my shoulder, and the voice said, put an ad on Craigslist. And I was like, Craigslist? Yeah, you know what's on there? And the voice said, just do it. And I said, okay. So I did in 6 minutes, had an ad put up, and it was a pretty damn good ad, if I do say so myself. But the next day I woke up to 300 responses, and some of them were what you would expect from Craigslist. And some of them, by the time I connected with them, it'd be like, yeah, well, they were married or whatever. They're not suitable. Very last one I looked at was a guy who didn't say very much, but wanted to get to know me. And so we chatted online and had a phone call or 2. And then he took me to dinner, and 365 days exactly, we got married. So that's one of the reasons why that I work with people over 50 is because so many people hear the story that it just can't be done, especially women, can't be done after 50. And I tell that all the time to say, yes, it can. It was my first. So, Mike, I just want to thank you very much for being here. This was a fascinating conversation. So it'll be uploaded soon, and I'll let you know when that's going to happen and let the listeners know when it's going to happen. But a fascinating conversation. Just want to thank you and Kate for Relaxed Money, because I am getting a lot out of it. It's a great program. And for people who are listening, next year, you can get into it next year. But thanks a bunch for being here as a conscious kind of dude.
I appreciate that.
it very much.
Yeah, I like
It's a-
the conscious dude. I actually call myself fly dad. That's what I call myself. That's my
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And I get questions all the time. It's like, are you a pilot? I'm like, no. It's like a modern, younger generation term that you fly,
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
But thank you
again,
so much for
thank
having
you.
me. I really appreciate. There's probably some things that I said that might upset people because they're older, right? The younger
Yeah.
generation older. Yeah. I
And we,
apologize for that if that happened.
no, it's
Um,
cool. It's all cool. Nobody's
but
going to die from this one. So,
yeah. And I just like there is this emphasis as we get older, like life ends or like things end. And I just like don't really believe that. It's like my life is getting better the older I get. It's not like reversing, right? It's like obviously getting injured and hit by a car is not something I want when I'm 40 years old, but it's like life keeps getting better. So I'm like, I can't wait till I'm like 80, 90. Who knows what's going to happen?
playing dominoes with the old guys at the breakfast place.
That's it. We'll be there at 5:30 in the morning at our local breakfast spot. So, yeah. Okay,
that's
cool.
great.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, everybody. What did you think of that hour-long conversation spread out over 2 weeks? Did you like it as much as I did? Because I thought it was absolutely fascinating. Here on 50-something Love, we're mostly for women over 50, and this was a rare opportunity to talk to a guy, talk about being conscious, talk about raising daughters to be conscious, raising human beings and working with women, being in the online space. This is also fascinating. So please, if you like this episode, share it with your friends, tell everybody about it, give me some comments, give me a like, give me feedback, anything like that. I'm happy to hear from you. Please share it with everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed having you guys and really enjoyed having Mike on these 2 episodes. Hope to see you guys soon on 50-something Love. And P.S., invite your guys to listen to this because it's pretty cool. Thank you so much and see you next week. Bye-bye.